gardens here at
Thank
the
you so
International
much,
Conference
sir.
Center. But we know that this pandemic called coronavirus disease, or COVID-19, has ravaged the whole world and affecting different sectors of the economy, the health, the security, and the like. But also here in Uganda, so many activities are on hold. Others were postponed just because of this pandemic that is also bringing everyone on their knees. And one of the key sectors that is already being affected is the sporting sector, because we've seen many sectors being reopened, like the business community are slowly coming to life again. But the sports activities in Uganda, at least they are still under closed doors, lock and key. But to help me navigate through this sector, how deeply has it been affected by this COVID-19 pandemic, is none other than Dr. Bernard Patrick Ogwell. He is the Secretary General of National Council of Sports, and he's here with me just to let me know how they are being affected and what are the plans of getting back on the road as the sector, and of course when we officially reopen. Good morning, Doctor.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to be with the NTV this morning. It's my first time to have this early morning show, and I want to extend my appreciation to our viewers. You have mentioned a very key issue which has been on our high priority issue to pursue with the government. We note that the entire world has come to face with the new realities of life as a result of the pandemic, of course, the COVID-19. Sports subsector has not been spared, and the worst of it all is that this has been the Olympic year.
Yeah.
Every world over Olympic is one of the prestigious
that had to be postponed.
Had to be postponed by 1 year, but by now we would be enjoying in Tokyo 4 games. And the beauty is that by the time the COVID pandemic issue emerged, we had already qualified 17 athletes at that point. But also we note that the IOC also issued some other additional parameters for qualification. So as I talk now, we have about 22 athletes in total who have already made it. That is on the side of the Olympic Games. But we also had the Paralympic Games, the people with disabilities sport. And that is one of the prestigious that always run concurrently with the Olympic Games. And it was scheduled actually to kick off immediately. Olympic was ending on 9th. Just the following day, we are going to be receiving the Paralympic teams. And in that category, Uganda had already by that point qualified 3 Paralympic athletes. So you can see the different far we had gone. For the Olympics qualifications, the qualifiers start 4 years. Actual Olympics work in a 4-year cycle. What you are seeing now as active participation of athletes in the final games, which has been scheduled originally for 24th of July to 9th of August this year. But you note that it has been a long journey for government, for National Sports Federation, for athletes in terms of preparation. Why? Because you must do a lot of internal build-ups, you must plan for finances, you must plan to participate in the qualifiers, in the different zones, different areas. Now, by the time we reach the level of qualification, you have earned enough points. In most cases, a lot of resources has been used.
Doctor, before we reach there, I just want to understand, now that facilities are under lock and key, these athletes have to be active physically, emotionally, and otherwise. But now they're not able to access, for example, Gogo, Nambole, and everywhere. How are you making sure that these federations are keeping in touch with these players, keeping in touch so that they are physical? Because 1 year is not too far from now.
Well, that is a very, very important question. I would want to start by saying that, yes, we noted that it is not very easy for an athlete who had really reached a peak point to cool down as if there's no a competition following. And you know, with the participation in athletics, for example, you have to build up the particular training programs, speed training, endurance training, all those are taken into account, including nutrition. Now, we have been able to coordinate with many of these federations, especially Uganda Athletic Federations, which has the biggest bulk, to have a plan for athletes to train under particular guidance of the technical team in the national federations, so that they don't sit and watch as things unfold. We have encouraged them to do in-house individual training, and you know His Excellency the President of the Republic of Uganda guided and actually demonstrated in State House that you can still even do. But we are talking about a very high level classical training that you're going to compete with the world best. So definitely the environment is not favoring our athletes in any way. And as I talk now, there's been a lot of cries for opening up, and we have moved distances. And I think as part of the strategy is that we are appealing to government to open up, so that these athletes, we can gazette a place and put them in, which we can monitor under the SOP which government will provide.
You may appeal to government, but it seems the government has been a little bit loud. The silence on the sports side has been a little bit louder, because whenever you see the president coming out to address the nation, whenever you see these ministers, whenever you see the parliament, you see there's some bit of silence on the issue of the sporting sector. Others have been crying out. You see the traders were opened. The teachers are also going to get a financial boost by the sporting sector. Their players, the key stakeholders, nothing is coming out specifically to address the sporting sector.
That may be true to some extent, but I would not want to say that they are not giving us opportunity. Of course, you note that there are a lot of discoveries at the level of a country, the scientific way of analyzing the situation. Firstly, we are privileged to note that in some parts of Europe, the games have been opened up.
Sure.
We have also noted that international sports federations have already opened up and given what we call rescheduled programs for qualifiers, be it football, be it athletics. So already we have pressure to ensure that our athletes are given opportunity to prepare to participate. Otherwise, we will be locked out as a country. And that's why I think yesterday you could have noted that the Honorable Minister of State for Sports met with the Right Honorable Speaker, Right Honorable Prime Minister of the Republic of Uganda. And in that meeting, it was agreed that a follow-up meeting where I will attend, together with the chairman of council, to go and discuss the standard operational procedures we had earlier submitted to the National Task Force early in July. Now, we hope that in that discussion, we shall meet the technocrats from the Ministry of Health, who are actually able to guide government on the safety measures required to avoid any chances of risk, even as we open up. So there's a high possibility government will give us a chance.
Okay, yes, you have that hope, you're optimistic, but then we don't know what are the proposals that you have fronted towards government that, yes, we too can, because when you go to Lugogo, you can see, you don't understand why activities like volleyball, like badminton, they're not able to go on. At least, just as you were saying, we've seen elsewhere, indoors, there are games going on without crowds in the stadia. Can't we see this as one of the proposals that, yes, we can open, let the leagues begin, let the competitions continue or reopen as we go ahead and see as a pilot project?
That's true. Actually, that is one of the key areas we have addressed in the proposal. And you know that proposal, we had the task force which council appointed, which comprised of the representative from the National Sports Federations, the Uganda Olympic Committee, National Council of Sports. We had other medical doctors, scientific people also in that committee. So we had elaborate discussions. And that's why in our proposal to government, we classified the federations into 3 categories. Under low risk, we had the moderate or medium risk, and we had high risk sports. If you look at the 51 sports. Now, you might have noted that the low risk sports, like, for example, golf, for example, chess, the mind sports, definitely may not need a lot more. It's about keeping distance, sanitizing, and getting an environment. But overall, we made very good proposal, which I see Europe is also practicing, where we have closed door stadium. And we think the risk that comes with a big crowd definitely will be avoided. So we are very optimistic that once we conclude on Tuesday with the government, to justify why we need sports to open, we think that these are some of the safety measures we would adopt in the first phase. And when things improve, definitely we shall be advised by the scientific people on other strategies. But we think we should not just open up. We want to take responsibility as council. We want federations also to prepare and be able to note that when a new reality is...
Yes. Dr. Gwel, when you talk about trying to reopen, when you move to Nambole, Mandela's National Stadium, you see that government has already overtaken that, taken over that facility, is now trying to develop bed capacity to hold, at least take care of the expected emergencies of COVID-19. And now this is the facility that was also trying to be renovated. But now when you take up such facilities that are supposed to be developing the sporting activities, isn't this a blow to the sports sector?
Well, I don't want to call it a blow because we need to appreciate that one, we as a country, we should show responsibility. Among the available facilities of government, which is spacious enough, is Nelson Mandela National Stadium. It was, what I would say, it was an intervention for any emergency outbreak that would overwhelm the national referral and regional referral hospitals. But for now, government has taken what we call a preparedness measure to contain any disaster that may come in terms of the overflow. So the beds have been arranged, the rooms have been arranged, and they have not yet actually opened up the place for such because the number has not been overwhelming, as you know the case of Uganda. So number is still accessible up to this point, but also we think for the case of athletes, the turf are not affected, and in any situation, there are certain control measures that can still be adopted in the circumstance to allow our athletes. It may not be Nambole, we can choose another area, and government allows us, because you see, a directive is a directive. If government says no activities for sports take place, and you have noted even the running on the road for people who love jogging in the groups are also been what? Stopped. It would be therefore a violation of regulation of government for athletes to take things in their own hands and start running around. So we just wanted the clearance. We would take into consideration due diligence that would help us to protect the integrity. By the way, we are more concerned with the safety of athletes more than anything else. Because we're not just opening up. We want them to be safe, prepare the environment which is conducive, and I think this is what government wants. So once we give that assurance, I'm very optimistic. We shall be back.
Okay, but we don't know when, at least we shall see the kickstart of these sporting activities. Let's talk about the funding for these federations and sporting programs. You, as National Council of Sports, you are overseeing over 50 federations. And before I had some federations, like, for example, Uganda Boxing Federation, the president there, Moses Mohanji, was saying that you are funding non-existent federations, that some people just wake up, have briefcase federations. How is this going to be? How are you going to develop the sport when you the overseer, you're being accused of running briefcase federations?
Well, I think that is a corridor talk. I call it a corridor talk because Mr. Muhangi has not formalized and submitted any of his complaint to National Council of Sports. But in any case, there are due processes that are to be followed. And this is in line with the statutory instrument number 38 of 2014 on rules and regulations that operationalized the National Council of Sports Act of 1964. Now, in that, it talks about registration of national sports federations. You note before 2014, there were federations. Actually, there were over 50 federations at that time. If I'm not mistaken, there were 54 national sports federations. They were all declared de facto. In a nutshell, I want to say that all the 51 federations that are registered by National Council of Sports on behalf of government followed the regulation for registration, and they meet all the requirements. And up to date, we still recognize them. We have not yet withdrawn registration certificate from any of them. I would note that Mwanji's concern perhaps would be... But
he's not only the one.
Would not, no. I would want to be particular. In this case, you mentioned him. I would want to note that perhaps he was using a weighing scale of his own to analyze the 51 federations to say this is maybe small, this is big, this is moderate. But as far as council is concerned, the National Council Sports Act actually makes it mandatory for National Council Sports on behalf of government now to ensure that we promote and develop all forms of sports which is recognized by government. Now, I want you to take note of this. When we say recognize and promote all forms of sport, this is the law. It means
it's your mandate.
It is our mandate even to promote any sport that government recognize. And I want to note that sport is a human right.
Just
so
as in your plan of promoting this sport, we know that you are now, this financial year, you are running a budget of 18 billion. But again, these federations, there are some people coming from these federations that are trying to make some noise over the allocation of funds. Because, yes, we know you are supposed to fund these federations, but now with your sporting funding program, some of them are not settled with the way you're going to allocate the funding.
Well, the issue of funding has been an issue because, one, we have very limited resources in our basket. I understand the cries of the federations because you and me know that sport is now an industry. The volume of support we give is not adequate. We also note the capacity of national sports federations to mobilize their own resources is also inadequate. So they are trying now to look at government in terms of everything for them to sustain the activities, which also it is very difficult. Government cannot get all the resources and provide. Now, the question you have brought forward, I want to take you back to our ambition as National Council of Sport, maybe as a sector, Ministry of Education and Sports, where we fall. The strategic development plan for the ministry, that is for government, Ministry of Education and Sports, and for the last 2015 to 2021, outline these needs. And as we talk in the recurrent financial year, 2020-21, the estimate of money we expect in our plan for development of sports is at 197 billion.
197 billion.
It is capital.
When you're having
on
a budget
95
of
and 96.
18 billion. Only.
When what we call ideal budget. Now that money, if it is provided to us, we would be able to address the budget needs of each of these federations 100%. Now, this is very key because we are able to get out of the 197 billion, which is in the books of government, 18 billion. Now, tell me, would it be adequate for me to distribute this money and we'll do a thing or two? So what is coming up is that we have to prioritize. And that is the principle of what we call value for money. You prioritize on the little resource you have in order to achieve in one area.
Now let's make this clear.
Perhaps I want to take, before you cut me short, that's the reason why we're able to support particular federations like athletics, where today now their performance has suit and
yes, I understand. I just want to understand this clearly.
World champions here.
I just want to understand this clearly. Doctor, you have 51 federations. You have, for example, the FUFA is already complaining, is already raising an alarm here that, yes, we are promised 10 billion as for the directive from the president, but you are running a budget of 18 billion. How is this going to be, how are you going to be able to fund these federations that are over 50, but you are running a budget of 18 billion only? How are you going to be able to develop the sport?
Well, it is still a challenge, as I mentioned, but we hope, you know, you must first get what is there and use it. We have made our case known. We are having a lot of hope that government will provide us with a supplementary provision in this recurrent financial year. First, the adjustment of Parliament, which pulled the 8 billion, affected us massively. Because already there were national sports federations, we were already classified under what we call niche sports. We were giving them some money where they know this is the amount of money they would have at the beginning of the financial year. Now that one, now it's no longer there. Apart from FUFA, which has its own share as directed by Treasury of Government of Uganda, the 10 billion. So what I'm telling you now is that we actually have possibly less than 2 billion to be shared by 50 federations.
Okay,
so in a nutshell, our journey, our mobilization to improve on funding levels of National Council of Sports in order for us to support National Sports Federation activities is ongoing. But we appreciate the challenge government of Uganda is going through. This is not a time for very many issues other than first address safety measures. And if that is done and addressed, we have a bargain to get more money. And we have a request already on table. Our senior minister is going to host the National Sports Federation leadership to discuss some of these issues. And we hope in such meetings we're able to be given some hope. And we have been also promised that actually
just
we
look
should
into
be
that,
able
Camilla.
to proceed.
Look into that, Camilla, and then have a word to the sports stakeholders, the federations, the players, the managers. And as we move forward, because we don't know, maybe September, maybe October, we may be able to see some activity coming back on board.
Yes, I want to appreciate firstly our athletes for the patience they've endured, especially the team that had already qualified for the Olympics in Japan. I know every mind was on the Olympics, and with athletes, it is a dream come true. We appreciate your patience, but I want to promise all the national sports federations that the government is doing everything possible to open up. And we have scheduled meetings next Tuesday, where we are going to meet with the National Task Force, chaired by the Prime Minister. I've already been invited for that meeting to discuss. And our hope is that arising out of the fixtures which has already been released by international sport federations, like the International Athletic Federation, we have football, CAF and FIFA, and many others, skating, they're even going virtual in some of the competitions. So we have pressure now. If Uganda to participate in the major games, we must align ourselves to the demand of the national fixtures. That means we need to reopen. So we have hope that by close of business this month, possibly we shall have a statement on when we are going to reopen.
We shall take that word and
our hope is maybe September, maybe October if it is worse, but we think September would be a good deal for us.
We shall take that word and we shall keep you accountable as National Council of Sports, and we hope that all will be well in the sports sector. This is Morning at NTV. Been here, Stephen Mbide been here with Dr. Bernard Patrick Ogwell. He's the Secretary General of National Council of Sports. He's been telling us more about their plans and how the sporting activity has been affected by this pandemic, COVID-19. Stephen Mbide of FS Wechibuga, on behalf of the entire crew, there Andrew Chamagaro was there at 6:30 up to now. I've been with the entire production and technical crew. We thank you for being a part of us. Until tomorrow, 6:30, just wake up with us. And of course, at 9 a.m., Friday Knackers will come on with Mwasa Muchia. Keep it here on NTV.